and welcome. I'm Ellie Richardson and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. President Donald Trump uses State of the Union stage to warn Iran over nuclear and security threats. He highlighted Iran's missile and nuclear activities as grave risks and hinted at possible stronger measures, even as he said diplomacy remains preferable. The top Democratic senator called US President Donald Trump's record-length Senate of the Union speech delusional and said it failed to address the struggles of ordinary Americans. Bill Gates took responsibility for his actions over ties to late financier and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in a town hall meeting with employees of the Gates Foundation. Documents released by the US Department of Justice had indicated that Gates and Epstein met repeatedly after Epstein's prison term. The UK's government is committing to releasing documents on ex-Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's past role as a trade envoy, after the Jeffrey Epstein scandal widened with the arrest of the veteran UK politician. British police say searches at Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's former home in southeast England have concluded after the former prince was arrested last week of suspicion of misconduct in public office due to his ties with the late US sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. China's Premier Li Qiang urged Germany to help safeguard global free trade. He said he was facing headwinds. He said China and Germany, as two major economies, should jointly safeguard multilateralism and free trade. Li told German Chancellor Friedrich Merz as the two met in Beijing. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Israel for a two-day visit that both countries have cast as a chance to deepen relations, as regional concerns mount over the risk of military conflict between the United States and Iran. The UN General Assembly voiced support for Ukraine on the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion. It passed by a tally of 107 countries, with 12 against and 51 abstentions, which included the United States. And we start with some breaking news for this hour. The United States has deployed a dozen F-22 Raptor fighter jets to Israel, continuing its military build-up in the Middle East amid escalating tensions with Iran. Flight tracking data shows the jets left Britain, heading towards the region ahead of crucial negotiations with Iran about its nuclear program. US officials confirmed the deployment, noting that some jets have already arrived in Israel. The F-22 Raptors, known for their advanced stealth capabilities, are seen as a sign of the US preparing for more aggressive stance towards Iran. Experts have emphasized that the deployment signals a potential cooperation between the US and Israel in case of a military action. This move adds to the growing US military presence in the region, which already includes 2 aircraft carrier strikes groups and over 60 fighter jets stationed in Jordan. And for your top stories this hour, US President Donald Trump announced a major energy deal for data centers during his State of Union address, saying the agreement would support rapidly growing digital infrastructure across the country. Trump said the deal would ensure reliable and affordable power for data centers as demand surged from artificial intelligence and cloud computing. He described the move as key to maintaining US technological leadership and attracting investment. Trump said the plan would create jobs and strengthen energy security while reducing reliance on foreign supply chains. Few details were provided, with officials saying more information would follow. We're now being joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky, who is a professor and Vice Dean, Global Law and School, who's joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World. What are the potential benefits and pitfalls of President Trump's ratepayer protection pledge, which aims to have major tech companies generate their own electricity for AI data centers to prevent higher consumer energy bills?
Well, certainly this is a concern for many. Indeed, those centers need a lot of electricity, a lot of energy, and if they can produce their own, that would not add to the bill of everybody else, the regular consumer. So generally, that's possibly a good way to express that concern. But apart from that, I think not much we can think of assisting or adding. These are big corporations. They do a lot of research. They collect a lot of data. They operate independently from any governmental intervention. I really don't know why the president is talking about this. This is something that companies should do. He's a president. And less he intervenes in the business of every company, better. In fact, this is what traditionally the conservative parties do. They don't intervene in the business of private companies. And in America, those private companies are pretty strong. They don't need the president to tell them what to do. They will do the best for them and their shareholders. They understand the issue of need of extra electricity and energy. They will do it very clearly. So even if President Trump didn't say anything about this, that doesn't mean anything. For that matter, I didn't even watch the State of Union address. I didn't expect anything from this president. He proved to be basically useless because everything he says one week can be different the other week. He's so hectic and unpredictable, so that's very difficult, Eli, to comment on anything Donald Trump says because he doesn't know what he does say himself. He doesn't know what he does mean himself. So for observers, it's just a statement without any much to comment on. I'm sorry.
And could this initiative mark a shift in how governments or private tech companies share responsibility for the energy demands of rapidly expanding AI infrastructure, or is it primarily a political response to public utility cost concern?
I guess I go for your second hypothesis here, that it's for some reason Donald Trump wanted, for political reason, he wanted to mention that. As I mentioned, the companies know what they do. They understand the problem or they know the solution. They don't need the president to tell them anything. These are powerful companies. They are well established. They do a lot of research. They have a lot of data. But yes, it's a general problem about not United States, but developing countries where you need extra energy to develop research and technology. And possibly countries that don't have enough resources, but also are under pressure to reduce fossil fuel burning for energy. They need to face that dilemma, if I can put it. But I hope the artificial intelligence itself will solve that problem. Over time, it will be an energy efficiency business. So for that matter, it will not create any major problem. Although we have the concern of climate change and reducing to low carbon, to less emissions. But also the AI demands a lot of energy. So that there is a dilemma, but obviously it's not in the hands of Donald Trump, even less. United States don't need to worry about that. Their tech companies are strong enough to deal with every such challenge.
And what might be the broader implications of this announcement for US competitiveness in AI and digital infrastructure globally, especially as other countries are also racing to expand their data center capacity?
Yes, that's a good question. There are competitions. Obviously, United States, but also China. These are the two front runners. And if you take European Union together, probably a third one. India does a lot of research and also open data centers. So these are the big players geopolitically and also technologically. So yes, for all of them, the dilemma which we discussed,
साई बाबा टाटा पे दर्शन के संग
what,
मात्र ₹2
how
प्रति
they meet that dilemma, what capacity they develop as to meet the energy efficiency of the tech companies. Producing big data is very high consuming. They have to deal with that. But generally, they understand the problem. I talked to many people who are dealing with the AI. The recently concluded summit, by the way, in Delhi also discussed that. The AI Impact Summit convened by Prime Minister Modi in Delhi also discussed that. So yes, there are challenges, but these are manageable, mostly by the...
Yes.
But it's always good to hear from a president of the largest economy in the world, United States, also expressing that.
Exactly. Thank you, but please don't go too far, as we will be back with you very shortly. Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger has sharply criticised President Donald Trump's State of the Union address, accusing him of failing to deliver on promises related to cost of living, safety and humanity. In a pointed rebuttal, Spanberger called Trump's speech a distortion of reality, highlighting the economic struggles of everyday Americans under his policies. She also condemned his administration's handling of immigration and public safety, calling for reforms to address issues like housing, healthcare, and affordable energy. She also addressed Trump's foreign policy, accusing him of weakening the US's position globally by aligning with Russia and China. Let's listen in to what Virginia Governor Abigail had to say.
This president took office last year. His reckless trade policies have forced American families to pay more than $1,700 each in tariff costs. Small businesses have suffered, farmers have suffered, some losing entire markets. Everyday Americans are paying the price. And even though the Supreme Court struck these tariffs down 4 days ago, the damage to us, the American people, has already been done.
We are now being rejoined by Professor Veselin Popovsky. Thank you for rejoining us here. What does Abigail Spanberger's sharp critics of President Trump's economic and immigration policies in her democratic response tell us about the emerging political narrative ahead of the 2026 midterm elections?
Well, certainly the Senate from Virginia is absolutely correct here. And it is not the Democrats speaking. If we take the economic analysis of the last year, and it signals all of those horrible policies, domestic and international. The reckless tariffs, they hit back the American consumers and producers. By the way, every restriction on trade, and tariffs are perfect, par excellence, restriction on trade, over time produced that. So Trump is not the first idiot that introduced tariffs and restrictions, and that always played very badly over the domestic people. But again, it can look at as a response by the opposition, by the Democratic Party. But if we take every serious analyst on the Trump's policy, it will say exactly the same. And, the consumers, the American people, are those who suffer first and foremost. They experience those increases in prices, in taxes, and everything he promised didn't work. Let's put it simply like that. He didn't do any peace agreement around the world. That was absolute nonsense what he declares, that he ended 7 wars. None of these ended, by the way. They are still fighting in Congo and everywhere else. And if something ended, it was not because Donald Trump did it. It was because the two parties agreed to do that, like Armenia, Azerbaijan. And domestically, the result of the tariffs and of the reckless economic policies and restrictions. And migration is also absolutely nowhere with those IC units going and torturing people around not only Minneapolis, but everywhere else. So over time, yes, I hope the American voters in November will make their proper choice, and this president will have not much time left, probably another State of Union address, and he will be impeached soon after that. Well, let's see how things go, but nothing else to expect here from Donald Trump, both internationally and, as I said, I didn't watch the speech. I didn't expect anything. It's a waste of time. To listen to Donald Trump is a waste of time. I don't recommend anybody doing that. Thank you.
And Spanbergers argues that Trump's tariff and One Big Beautiful Bill policies have increased costs for everyday Americans. How compelling is this argument in the context of broader debates over affordability and the economy?
Yeah, very good speech, by the way. But the Democratic senator was very correct here, that she said what everybody knows, that the rising cost of life for the Americans will be seen. And again, this was against all the promises he made before the elections. Everybody understands now that Donald Trump lied, and lied big, to win the elections. And now the American people have to carry the burden of all that, paying more and suffering more and losing jobs and having tariffs lead exactly to losing jobs, not the other way around. So yes, as I said, it looks like a statement by the Democratic Party, but for that matter, it doesn't mean, it doesn't say what exactly the situation today is. It says the truth, that the American people will bear the cost of their choice last year and a half ago, choosing Donald Trump as their president. Unfortunately, that's the situation there.
Thank you so much, Professor Veselin, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner are set to meet Ukraine's Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rustem Umerov, in Geneva on February the 26th. Witkoff added that he had asked Umerov to get permission from Volodymyr Zelenskyy for a meeting in Geneva to continue the talks and explore different options for a peace agreement. Witkoff expressed hopes that the next round of negotiations for the Ukrainian settlement will take place within the next 10 days. This comes after the most recent round of talks held in Geneva on February the 17th to the 18th, which were described as difficult but productive. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has departed for Tel Aviv, embarking on a 2-day state visit to Israel. During the visit, PM Modi will become the first Indian Prime Minister to address Israel's parliament, the Knesset. His address is seen as a significant milestone in the strengthening of bilateral ties between the two nations. PM Modi's visit comes amidst ongoing geopolitical tensions in West Asia. The visit will focus on deepening cooperation between India and Israel, particularly in defense, trade, technology, and innovation. PM Modi is expected to hold discussions with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on various issues, including regional security and economic growth. The visit will also include visits to Yad Vashem, Holocaust Memorial Museum, and an interaction with the Indian diaspora in Israel. Both nations are looking to set new goals for their partnership, with particular attention to areas such as agriculture, water, management and people-to-people exchanges. The trip is set to further enhance India-Israel relations with a focus on security cooperation, innovation and building a resilient future. We're now going to Major General Gigi Davidi, who is a war veteran and professor and in international relations and strategic studies, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us here today on NewsX World.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you very much.
My first question is, what are the core strategic goals behind PM Modi's agenda in Israel, from defence cooperation to economic partnerships? How might these shape India's broader foreign policy priorities in the Middle East?
Well, Ali, India and Israel, they enjoy very close relations which cover wide spectrum, the strategic issues, the trade issues, the defense, and also people-to-people relations. So therefore, these are the key areas or key pillars of the India-Israel relation. But before I come to the specific question, it's very important to understand that this visit comes at a very crucial time, when there is a heightened tension in West Asia, especially with the way Americans have amassed their forces and their tension is there between Iran and America. Now, coming to the visit per se, this is the second visit of Prime Minister Modi. First visit was in 2017. And as I stated, that the relation between Israel and India are multifaceted. First and foremost, Israel has been a very dependable partner as far as security is concerned, and some of the weapon systems which have been jointly developed, like the Barak 8, their performance was outstanding during the skirmish between India and Pakistan last May during Operation Sindoor. So Israel has been a great partner in developing these platforms and also the surveillance systems and the high technology transfer of the various weapon systems. That's the one dimension. Second is the strategic partnership. India and Israel are on the same page as far as terrorism is concerned. They also share the similar views on the regional issues. And another important factor is the connectivity, like the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor is also very important, because in case there is a blockade of Suez or there is a certain development of security concern, then this is an important connectivity. And the third important point is trade. While the trade between the two countries is hardly about $3.75 billion, but there is a lot of scope in expanding the trade. And the last point is the political dimension, because as I said, that Israel and India are very close partners and they have multifaceted relations and also the people-to-people contacts. So all put together, all I can say is that this visit is going to give further momentum and further consolidate the relationship between India and Israel.
And what diplomatic message does Modi send by addressing the Israeli parliament and holding high-level talks with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at this particular geopolitical moment?
Well, first and foremost, our relation erstwhile used to be hyphenated between Israel and Palestine. That's no more the case. So India has taken this visit, in fact, as a standalone visit. It's not tied up with any other visit. So that means that first message that is conveyed is the growing partnership between India and Israel, and addressing the parliament, Knesset, is also a very strong message. This is the first time that Indian Prime Minister would be doing so. The second message is that India is an important player in the region, and therefore India has to be taken into consideration, and its interests also have to be factored when we talk about the West Asia region, because remember that India has very close relation with the Gulf countries. India also has close relation with the other nations like Egypt. So therefore, this has to be taken into the larger perspective that India is a strong player in this region. And the third point is that while the tensions are on, while the region is in high sort of state of readiness for any contingency, India has offered itself that it can also play a role to tone down the tensions and also help in the negotiation process that is going on, because President Trump had recently floated the border peace in which 50 countries are on it, and India is also an observer on this issue. So therefore, all put together, I think India is positioning itself well in this region. It is an important player, and also it is willing to play an important role in the larger geopolitical dimension of West Asia ally.
Thank you so much, Major General Gigi Davidi, for joining us here today on NewsX World. Thank you. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.